making towards more inclusive and realistic way of decision making when it comes to water, and also to coordinate our international water targets, because every country has different certain water targets. Agencies also is committed for that as well. Governance. Yeah. So governance is about the process of making choice, decision, and trade-off. It's not just limited to the state or the government. It also includes other players such as private sector and civil society, NGOs. It's a process through which various citizens of the country will articulate their interests, their aspirations, and exercise their legal rights to meet their obligations and lead the business. That's a classical definition of governance. Other definition, this is one I like the most, and I think this really fits the kind of work I do, so I have taken up this definition of the UNDP. And also partnerships. So governance also involves partnerships. The partnership is between government agencies, NGOs, research institutes, and private sector participation. So when we say research institutes, for example, International Water Management Institute, which has its headquarters in Sri Lanka, which works on water aspect, yeah. Then we also have Scotland International Water Institute in Sweden, right? So there also research institutes are involved, when we talk about governance. So we talk about the contribution of governance. The model has changed in the last few decades. So the new governance is a sense of interaction, regime. So it's based on accommodation. Based on accommodation rather than a decision-making way of working. There will be dialogue, there will be networking, there will be negotiation between various partnerships, between various stakeholders. It also provides an opportunity to talk down hierarchy. So some of the perspective is also taken into account. The solutions would be local. For local solutions has to be local. We cannot have a top-down approach. It includes both private and public sectors and its interaction. Also, is important. It's not that we agree with authority and new form of governance. Authority is very much there, but it does not take the form of big government authority because there are other players as well. As I mentioned, local civil society organizations, research institutes, private players as well. That emphasize on relationship, network, negotiations, or collective action. Okay. Again, it's a very interesting table which talks about the new and the old form of governance. I will not go much into detail. I can share the video with you. It's about how the old form of governance was more in terms of government and bureaucracy. The new one is also there, the role of government and bureaucracy. But again, there are other players like civil society and markets. Yeah. Again, there is diversity of actors and power diffusion. You will see there is process orientation, network governance, participation, negotiation, whereas in the old was more of the top-down approach, formal institutions, intergovernmental relations, hierarchical control. So there is change, from the governance model which we had earlier in the new form of governance. So there is a drastic change in the I think that's the UWR. Now, just to give you a little bit views of water stress. So this is a interesting map, the data which comes from the Water Resource Institute, which has its headquarters in Washington, D.C., United States. And it has predicted, that if you have business as usual, the temperature is going to rise, and by 2000, you would see that there's going to be massive water crisis in the world. The red part, actually, you could see India is an extremely high zone. So India is going to really face a very terms of water stress, if we don't really work to take care of our resources. So I think around the world, especially the communities are the ones which will have extreme effect of this water crisis. With the water crisis, there's going to be threat to agriculture production, to our industrial production, food security and livelihood, and also the ecosystem biodiversity. This is a major projection done by the Water Resource Institute. Now, water governance, yeah. So we talked about, water, when we talked about governance, new form of governance, new form of governance, water governance. So basically, it's a practice of, coordination, decision making between different actors around water. Because water is a contested, whether water is there is going to be some kind of conflict there. And it also involves the political, economic, and social processes, institutions through which government, private people, private sector, civil society make decisions. How can we use water? What should be developed? What water should be used for what purposes, and how to allocate and design. So this is a very classical definition of water mechanics. I hope by now things a little clear. If I'm going too fast, also let me know, and I will slow down. Is it clear? Okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Now, coming to the new governance in water. So, new governance, when we talk about water, is about informal and formal networks. There is partnership and dialogue. It's not top down. Yeah, that's why I mentioned about research institutes, diversities of stakeholders, diversity of actors. It's not only hydrologists or irrigation engineers who are going to call the shots. Sociologists, anthropologists, people from development studies, public policy, human geographers have a major role to play when it comes to the new form of governance for water. Complexity of water management has also various multi-character water. The governance also has been transformed in a big way that we would see in river basin management, transboundary basin water, integrated water resource management. In all this, you would see that various stakeholders are there, various perspectives are taken into account when any decisions are taken into when it comes to these aspects. So this is, you would see how the shift has changed from the old form of governance to the new form of governance. Active development, gain knowledge, management of people, process, knowledge sharing, and diversity of organizations. So it's not only irrigation department to take care. Yeah. So when we have irrigation department, we'll also have district panchayat coming together. We'll also have panchayat users. We will also have water user groups. We'll also have various irrigation is happening. We have committees which are focused around the better use of the water distribution. So you would see various stakeholders coming together. This knowledge. Also, the latest IPCC report talks about going back to our traditional knowledge. India has vast traditional knowledge, and India always had very vast. Have the three techniques. Gujarat has, right? Rajasthan is known for step wells, it's known for the stalkar, all these are very well known traditional knowledge of water harvesting techniques. But coming from the canal water, we just forgot about the traditional values of managing water. We also need to take into account the water state factor. For example, Rajasthan, Punjab government is ready to Indira Gandhi Canal. We never know in the decades. It will just say that we have to take care of our Punjabi farmers. We will not give to Rajasthan. What will happen? So we have to be self-reliant. We have to take care of our traditional water harvesting techniques and water harvesting structures we have. So you will see again that the major emphasis globally also is to go back to the traditional knowledge. Yeah, so in the international arena, there's emergence of various global water networks. These are some of the very well-known water networks which we have globally. The World Water Council, Global Water Partnership, General Water Alliance. These are the ones which work in terms of making water available to everyone, which is everybody's perspective. So these are some of the networks that I was talking about, the new form of governance and water, various networks and partnerships. So these are some of the networks which have a major role to play. So we whether it's in developing countries or developed countries, at local and national level, you will see that increased privatization is taking place. There's also public-private partnership, decentralization of water management, for example, coming up the user groups, yeah, for canal water. And suppose managing how the project would be implemented. Very state-centric decision-making authorities will become more inclusive and pluralistic way of decision-making. So that you would see how it has changed from the even international. I mean, it's not in the Indian context, it's also in the South Asian context. If you'd see how it has changed from a state-centric decision coming to more inclusive and pluralistic way of decision-making when it comes to. So creates values. So what are these values? From local to global, values, yeah, to water governance. The interesting question is why it is important to have values attached to water governance. Because values, when values are not openly considered, the governance norm lack orientation. So I give you a very example here in terms of the Ganges project. That is the NAMI Ganges program. Yeah, it's a very approach. So simple river, it's a simple river for vehicles. So when you have values attached to a particular, so a particular resource, it will it will be taken forward. So similarly, that's why it's not going to be successful. So because values are attached to values, spiritual values are attached to it, religious values are attached to it, cultural values, festivals. So you can see how when values are attached to any governance model, here it is the water governance, there are chances a project or the program will have a success. Right. So value-based approach, the extreme water issue can be just seen from management perspective. So it will not be seen as a management perspective. You will also see the human perspective. The emotional value will also be taken into account. Different cultures, we have different categories you of understanding meaning of water, right? The way water we see it, for our cultural values will be very different the way water is seen in other parts of the world. So when I talk about value, it's not only Indian context. You take water, the kind of value it is attached in any religious tradition, the worship. You take water, that's not a tradition. There's not so much holy water for them. And then you have water in this other religious tradition which have equal importance, like in Christianity, when we have the baptism, so water is again used. All the life cycle, whether it's rituals of celebration, marriage, what has values attached to it. So it's not called it's an interesting question, but it will help us to understand how ethical issues are important for us to do water governance, the technical and political insights to the changing pattern of water governance into this scenario. Now it's a bit clear. Which is a green. Yes. Because you already with the training in water. So, what for other? It's not rocket science. It's just what we see day to day. We just have to be a little open-minded when we see water. That is, it's not that what we drink. So much values attached to it. Yeah. So type of governance, command and control governance when it comes to water, and it's also criticized because it's considered to be very. It fails to reflect the value of business social learning. So. It doesn't work. Yeah. If we have this command and control water managing our water resources, it will not work. The other is when it comes to water, and that is supply side development, which is a very business model when we have market-based governments for water. And this is also criticized because there is one particular solution for all the problems. This is criticized because it's not taking a logical perspective. For example, a dam coming up or a big irrigation project coming up. And what will happen? The local communities or the tribes will be worshipping that particular or the valleys or the river which is they will ask to move. There has to be, decide how the project and that's for the development, but then development for who? For example, the traffic committees are asked to. So it's like displacement. So again, I'm not taking into account the ecological perspective. Please remember, traffic communities, they have a lot of emotional values attached to their land, to their bodies, because for centuries they've been living their festivals around a particular area, for example, where the time is coming, then there are streams and without taking into account the ecological perspective. So you see, the market-based approach and command and control governance also doesn't work much. So in terms of the irrigation project, I have example I gave you. Now, let's come back to India. It's experiencing a very severe water crisis, and this is a baseline water stress map, which again comes from Water Resource Institute, and you would see that India is experiencing a very water crisis because of our increasing water demand. We have a huge population, of water demands are increasing, and then agriculture practices are not sustainable. We have rapid population going up. Then with climate change, this is also worsen our situation. We have erratic rainfall patterns, ground levels are going down, there's water pollution, and also there are various factors which is added to India's water problem. Some of these are in terms of who will have access to water and who will not have access to water. I touched upon earlier. Clean water challenge, unregulated groundwater extraction and river water dispute. So if you see India is home to about 60% of the world's population, but we only hold 4% of the world's fresh water resource. So you will see how much water is so crucial, and the crisis it will come in the future if we are not responsible enough and have the right kind of policies to manage our water resources. Again, you see, it's played a very important role in food security because most of the agriculture will take groundwater. And it's also very important for the economic growth of the nation. And again, if you see this, because the data is coming in, if you see Rajasthan, right, it's exploited in terms of its groundwater levels. So because of the, as I said, the regulations are not that strong. So people keep on draining down and excess of water withdrawal, so water levels are going down. By the composite yes, the latest data coming from the NITI Aayog, and also this map is the latest one, which is about the Ministry of Jal Shakti, which talks about how much groundwater collected is in India right now. The next thing earlier, presented a little bit of the research I'm doing. So this is, you can see map India, Rajasthan, and this is Jaisalmer district. Jaisalmer district shares a very long international border line with Pakistan. This is where I'm currently doing the research in seeing how water governance and what practices are needed in terms of revival of the water techniques so that the communities become self-reliant in managing their water. So Rajasthan is located in the northwest part of the country. Climate last stretch of the Thar Desert, about 80% Thar Desert is in India, and 20% is in Pakistan. And Rajasthan is a very acute water shortage, erratic rainfall patterns, and there's no reliance of groundwater. Yes, groundwater is there, but that's not the solution. In terms of the climate vulnerability of Rajasthan, you can see about 70 to 80% is developed. Climate is semi-arid to arid. Drought diversification is increasing, the rainfall patterns are very erratic, scarcity of water resources, and about 75% is rain-fed. So again, this is where the research, this is where the research is going on. Yeah, so the canal has reached from Punjab to Rajasthan to Jaisalmer, the state where it covers. But again, Jaisalmer is the largest district, so it doesn't, all the villages, all the blocks are not covered by the canal water. So the districts which have canal water available, well, it's good for them. But what about the villages, especially the villages where I'm doing research is at the border? It's the possibility of the canal water, which is the security reasons. It's not possible to have massive development over there because of the country's national defense security reasons. So then what is the solution? The solution lies with the communities have to revive the traditional water harvest techniques which they had for centuries. Yeah? They have to give up on the reliance on water tankers because again, it's very expensive and water tankers are not the solution. Just to give you a glimpse, this is again the data from the ISRO Interspace Research Organization. You can see that about 10, mostly 30% of India is under land degradation desertification. So it's a really very alarming rate. In terms of Rajasthan, you again will see about 67% of Rajasthan is affected by desertification, which is the highest area of any state in the country. And again, this is the data which we have, the map is coming from the India Space Research Organization. So you can see how it is. Just to give you a glimpse, in terms of the what the research is coming out, the data says that climate change, sorry, there's a very severe threat to the local communities, vulnerable communities, or especially in terms of social standing, whether it's their gender, caste, class, or religious identities, particularly in the district of Jaisalmer where the research has been going on, and the lack of community manifesto because of the community water. Earlier, the previous slide, about 30% of India is undergoing desertification, 67% of Rajasthan is again undergoing desertification, and Jaisalmer has the highest, that is about 93% is in terms of desertifications. And there's high dependence on water resource, that is the water. Now, the traditional water housing techniques were just given up. So now the revival. This has happened because of the role of the communities along with the civil society organizations. The civil society organization is working hand in hand with the state administration to revive this, to bring the policy in government to the grassroots level, so that the traditional knowledge is revived. Traditional water harvesting techniques are taken up in a big way, so that the communities can become self-reliant. Just to give you a glimpse in terms of water security, climate change, desertification, local, this all is interlinked. So one impacts the other. This is how in the case study. This is basically an ethnographic study. I've been doing research for about 2 years. It's a very difficult task to do because these are it's a very sensitive area international body language. So these are very difficult tasks to raise. We will have the data collection, done about 20 years of discussion with various stakeholders, local communities, especially the villages which are at the border. 50 informal interviews with the local communities. So what are their aspirations? What do they want? How do they want changes? Schemes and how to really impact their lives. Yeah, so this is the traditional community-based water management. So this traditional water management we had it earlier. We then go through the what we do. This is in terms of historically. So the previous is a very important method of centralized water management. This is how the management has moved. The really context and participating decentralized water management with the coming from the World Bank. Finally, there is final realization that we need to go back to the traditional water-based water management and governance, and is really back to the traditional water management and governance. Okay, so gender water in Rajasthan. This is conducting interviews with this village. The villages are the tribes. They are also a village. You can see in Rajasthan, women are traditionally, they bear all the responsibility of water collection, especially in this arid regions. And traditional water management really enhance and access and address, in managing water. So you would see that it all the body belongs to the women. Data connection with visions, which are the tribes, Rajasthan, and then with the Sikh Muslims, they are also at the border. There are some Rajput houses, Rajput villages, which are really again at the border. 3 communities have been covered. So we have come to the conclusion that we have community-led initiatives at the village level, the village level water communities are very important for any local water resource management. Women play a very important role. So in all the villages we have seen, because when they participate in the decision making, it has really brought large impact because they are the one who are maintaining the local ponds, the local wells. Branching that local knowledge is again very important. That gives them a sense of ownership, promote sustainable water use in the responsible water scarcity. Finally, we have to revive the community-based institutions where women are at the forefront taking care of their water resources, and that's how it has really helped in these villages. For sustainability, traditional water management wisdom in Rajasthan, which again I mentioned, it was lost. It was just taken a backseat because of the canal water coming up. So again, revival of the traditional rainwater harvesting technique. Rajasthan, not only in Jaisalmer, but other districts as well. And we see from a sustainability perspective, there is more focus on the socio-ecological dimension of water system, which have really helped in water governance dimension, same from environmental outcomes. And that is where we would see the cultural outcomes also important. And various community-based strategies can be really be captured if we take rainwater techniques, harvesting techniques into management practices, into governance practices, and also at the district level, and then also at the panchayat level, where various policies are made. So it enhances a long way. Also, it helps in the scarcity of water. This is the question of sustainability. Some of the takeaways from today's lecture is that governments and businesses they need to invest in supporting various water supply systems and ensuring that they are fit for the purpose, that is people and place. We cannot have a one standard model. It has to be very contextualized. It has to be context specific. What works well in Jaisalmer may not work very well in Jodhpur, for example. What works very well in Delhi may not work in Indore. These are some of the districts of Rajasthan. Similarly, what works very well in Rajasthan may not work well in Punjab or in Jammu and Kashmir or in Gujarat. Action to prevent degradation of rivers, aquifers, and other water bodies from unsustainable withdrawals and pollutions. Some of the takeaways, and water allocation towards just and sustainable water access for the most disadvantaged group of the communities, whether it's in the rural areas, whether it's in the rural areas, it could be in terms of the gender, hierarchies or what is your religious affiliation. When I talk about the urban context, similar these aspects are there as well, but also in terms of whether you are from a resettlement colony or slum areas. Bottom up and top down local place-based management. Again, I said the bottom up approach is required. The subaltern perspective is to take into account. If we are top down, it has to be local. So we cannot have somebody sitting here, for example, in Jaipur, deciding what needs to be done in Jaipur or Jaisalmer. Finally, policies that need to be interconnected with the targets and indicators of SDG 6. Lecture is started with SDG 6, how SDG 6 is interlinked to various other goals of the SDGs. So, on that note, thank you very much, and I look forward for your comments, suggestions, critical comments, suggestions, improvements, because it's all so wants to work for you as well.
Thank you very much, Farhat, for the analysis of both ethnography and see. I have some questions of my own. I will ask Professor Sundar, who was requested to be the chair of the session, to maybe if he can come here and we can have a brief in maybe Q&A session with Professor Sundar, and then we can open it up to the audience for their questions. So I think while the mic is getting ready, and I first shoot a question to her. The second last picture, I thought it was a little disturbing. The researcher, from the power dynamics point of view, the researcher is sitting on a neat mat, and the respondents are on the stones and on the ground, absolutely on the ground. And that kind of picture shows not only gender kind of a discrimination, but a kind of intra-gender exploitation. So I would like Dr. Farhat's response to that. And also, I would like to say that the distinctions they drew quite extensively between all forms of what governance really strike a very agreeable note as far as I'm concerned. I think new forms of what governance are not really so new. In fact, there's a lot more of forms of governance continuing even today. Just give a small example. I'm from Bengal. Responses of government of India negotiating water that passes through Bengal with the people of Bangladesh directly. And Bangladesh very justifiably complained against that and saying that where is West Bengal here? Where is the entire water passes through West Bengal? And we have no role to play in the entire negotiation. So we have these kind of situations. I think water issues are very complex issue, as you rightly said. And I don't think they can be so as far as water issues are concerned. So with these few words, a few comments from me, let me open this for questions or comments from the audience, including my three colleagues who just shared panel. I mean, I don't blame them. I walked out of a meeting where all the three of them were there. Yep. Anyone has any? Yes, Mrs. Jain.
Say, has cultural, economical. So I think what are cultural, economical, social, sari values very clear about this. Why this is the statement. क्यों solve कर सकती क्योंकि values में attached हैं तो हमारी चीजें कैसे solve करने में आएंगी, questions कैसे raise होंगे या जो problem है वो कैसे आएगी, तो मुझे इसमें जो values होती है हर value differences होते हैं
जैसे मैंने उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बात करी एग्जांपल दिया था नामी गैंजेस प्रोजेक्ट में तो उसमें एक रिलीजियस वैल्यूज अटैच्ड है और इसमें स्टेक होल्डर्स होंगे तो वैल्यूज लीगल डेवलपमेंट बड़ा इशू होगा तो इसके लिए
for the नमामि गंगे religious sentiments सब सारे religion के उससे जुड़े हैं अगर मैं throughout the religion देखूं सब religion में water को हम नहीं value दे रहे हैं then why there be any conflict to resolve this particular
और जैसे इसमें I mentioned that also it's economic, political, social, cultural there is no decision but also decision when it comes to water. I hope ये जवाब मेरा that was my answer to your question about
यहाँ बोलेंगे तो maybe सब कुछ सुनाई देगा.
So as I said, there is no clear-cut answer. Values are different, and I agree on what you just mentioned. But again, it is it's a little tricky. I think at this point of time, I really don't have the answer to your question. But I would again say it's again because values are different for every different. It varies, even within a community as such. So that was an example to give that it's picked up, but how far it will be successful, but it will take some time. Is that in water studies that no decisions are also decisions at times when it comes to water. Water is a wicked problem. I started with that. It's a wicked problem. So no decisions if the government are not taking any decisions, it will there is also a decision in that. And coming to the clean thing is that it was just that out of respect, that because
It's not like